All right. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Kaylee Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Whittier Alliance Neighborhood Organization. I use she, her pronouns. I have been with the organization almost 5 years. Next month will be 5 years for me. I'm a Whittier resident and been in the neighborhood about 7 or 8 years now. And I think what we'll do, just to save on time for those who are just joining, please do put your name, your organization, and your email address in the chat so we can be sure to communicate out any new information with folks. I expect a few more people will be kind of trickling in, so we'll just send that reminder around a couple times to make sure that we have as much time as possible for folks to ask questions. I'm just gonna call out a few people here in the room to introduce themselves that have been a part of this project team, just so you know kind of who's in the room from our end of the project. And then I'll hand it over as well to Bridget to do a little bit of a brief project overview, and then we'll hope to spend the bulk of the time on questions that you all may have for us. So I'll go ahead and just ask folks one by one here if you want to go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself briefly and sort of your role in the project. Kristen, would you like to go first?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen. I am Whittier Alliance's staff. I am also a Northside resident. Hey, Rochelle, good to see you here. I am actually, I helped put together the RFP and helped to put together some of the project elements and did some of the community engagement around the project as well. And I'm just going to be here taking notes. And yeah, thanks for everybody that is here.
Awesome. Thanks for taking notes for us today, Kristen. George, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm George Smiley. I'm a Whittier resident and a board member at Whittier Alliance, and I am the chair of Housing and Land Use at Whittier Alliance, and I'm also the steering committee member for the 2116 Nicollet Ave. Worked on developing this request for proposal, and we're super excited to be here and listen to some questions and hopefully have some great answers for you guys. So thanks.
Thanks, George. Mary, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mary Browning. I live in Whittier. I am basically just a community member. I served on various roles in the committee, giving feedback, etc. I guess that's all.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Mary. And I know we've got a couple other steering committee members that are going to trickle in as well, but they couldn't be here right at 3. So I will give just a very brief background on Whittier Alliance, and then I'll pass it over to Bridget to talk more about the project. So as you all probably know, Whittier Alliance is a part of the city recognized neighborhood organization system. We are an independent nonprofit serving the Whittier neighborhood. So the Whittier boundaries are Franklin Avenue on the north, Lindale Avenue on the west, Lake Street on the south, and I-35W on the east. We are a really dense neighborhood. We've got about 15,000 people who live here. Really diverse community, a lot of different languages spoken here as well. Folks are probably familiar with Eat Street as well. This site is located right on Nicollet Avenue, a really important corridor for our city. Whittier Alliance, 47, 8 years now, our organization has been in operation. Over the decades has been involved in the real estate market in the Whittier neighborhood in a lot of different ways. And in the last, several years in particular, we've been really looking for an opportunity for our organization to take a more direct role again in sort of the real estate landscape, and also build in some long-term stability and security for our organization in terms of office space and presence in the neighborhood, as you all probably know, it's tough for small organizations to find commercial space that is affordable to be able to fulfill mission or place-based work. And so this opportunity came up, and it felt like something that we really felt we needed to pursue. And we really wanted to do that in a way that was not just for our community, but alongside with, driven by community. And so we're trying to carry out that goal in a lot of different ways. And so this is kind of the next step of that, is releasing this RFP and finding a community partner to sort of help us take it to the next stage from here. So that's kind of a really quick, fast overview of us. Whittier had a CDC many years ago. And so there is a little bit of an organizational history in doing community development work. And we're excited to sort of revive that a little bit and figure out what that looks like now for us. So thank you again all for being here. And I'm going to pass it over to Bridget to tell us more about the project.
Thanks, Kaylee, and hi, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces and some new faces. My name is Bridget Higgins, and I am a former Whittier Alliance board member and the chair of the steering committee that put together this RFP document. I have a community development background, and currently I work for the city of Minneapolis. So I am just going to go ahead and pull up the RFP. There's a lot of content here, but I wanted to touch on a few highlights before we open it up for questions. We're mostly really looking forward to hearing from you folks today and clarifying any pieces of information that might be helpful as you're considering your proposals. So this RFP came together in about a year-long process. It was developed by a steering committee, which was selected from a competitive application pool of folks who live in proximity to the site and are representative of the neighborhood. And through many discussions with that committee, and then also additional community engagement and pop-up events and surveys with the neighborhood at large, we put this document together, which really identifies high-level neighborhood priorities for what we want to see in the built environment on this site in a way that hopefully isn't overly restrictive and really allows for a lot of creativity from potential development partners. So I just wanted to highlight a couple key elements here. On page 7, we have program and uses, and this is kind of where we're outlining the actual uses of the building that we want to see. The plan is to develop a mixed-use property that not only houses the Whittier Alliance's office, which would be relocated from 24th and Nicollet, but also really features some creative housing solutions. Did I get the cross street wrong? I have some people smiling.
25th.
Oh, and that's recorded too, how embarrassing. No, I'm just kidding, but yeah, so we are, housing affordability has been a priority for folks engaged with Whittier Alliance, and kind of the advocacy that's been happening at the Housing and Land Use Committee level for several years. And this RFP is really seeking a wide variety of possible options as far as creating new affordable housing in the neighborhood. So we're excited to see what folks are interested in proposing. We're open to ideas that include anything from SRO units to missing middle workforce housing to traditional LIHTC development. But again, that affordability piece has been a longtime priority, and it continues to rise to the top of folks' priorities as we continue to have discussions about this site. And then in addition to the Whittier Alliance office, we are interested in engaging other organizations and entrepreneurs who the neighborhood organization already has strong relationships with, especially when we're thinking about anti-displacement strategies as the Kmart site looks to be developed in the near future. So really thinking about how to creatively create new construction, commercial space that is able to be rented at a more affordable rate for folks using shared amenities and shared common area kind of as ways to reduce overall cost is kind of what we're aiming for here. And then the other section I just wanted to highlight briefly before we take a look at the timeline and open it up to questions is just these overall design criteria that are highlighted on page 9. We surveyed, it was over 170 folks in the neighborhood, and most of them lived within 4 blocks of the site. And environmental sustainability is a criteria that really rose to the top of survey results for things folks wanted to see in new construction. And that's obviously something that's super exciting and able to be delivered on in a huge number of ways. So again, each of these criteria kind of lists some options of potential ways to achieve these design goals, but the list is certainly much longer, and we're really looking forward to hearing proposals that are thoughtful in how they incorporate pieces of this and how they analyze how to achieve some of these goals in a financially feasible way. In addition to environmental sustainability, the other top 2 priorities are creative placekeeping and urban design. So we're really looking forward to working with a development partner that leverages our organization's ability to connect with the community and organize community engagement to create some really beautiful and creative, hopefully public art and iconic design features to make the building a really special place. The site obviously needs activation. It's been vacant for a long time. So in addition to like artistic and creative placekeeping features, really thinking about urban design and how to continue to promote walkability on each street and even more so how to create some livelihood on this stretch of Nicollet where there is not as high density of development at this point in time. And I think I'm not gonna read through this, but as far as when you're considering your proposal to us, we do have a scoring guide on page 13, which I think is helpful in thinking about how we are going to look at proposals we receive. So please do take a look at that. And the last thing I just wanted to look at briefly is this timeline of what's coming down the pipeline and what you can expect if you are interested in submitting an app or a proposal to us. Tomorrow afternoon, evening, we're hosting an optional site tour. It's drop-in, feel free to stop by or to send your colleagues and check out the site in person. Obviously, it's really nice to have that additional neighborhood context when you're thinking about what's gonna get built in a space. And we'll have folks from our steering committee and from the organization there to say hi face-to-face, which is also always nice. Following that, our final deadline for questions that will be posted in an online Q&A is on the 30th. We're really looking forward to having dialogue with potential applicants, so please do feel free to reach out. I believe info, to either Kaylee or the info@whittierallianceinc.org email address in this document or on the main page on our site that has this. And then our final submission deadlines are November 14th. So that's about 6 weeks from now. And we're looking forward to receiving those and reviewing them with the committee who's put this proposal together. And then we are planning on working on scheduling follow-up interviews with finalists towards the end of November, beginning of December. So all of this proposal process will likely be wrapped up by the end of the year, and will be ready for action in 2023, which is very exciting. I am gonna stop sharing, and then I think we can go ahead and take questions.
Thanks, Bridget. Before we take questions, I just want to call out a couple more folks from the steering committee who were able to join while you were chatting. So if you want to go ahead and unmute and just introduce yourself really briefly and your role in the project, that would be great. We'll go first to Stephanie and then to Laura.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Brown. I have been on the steering committee for the lot, and I'm on the board of Whittier Alliance. I live in the neighborhood, and so was part of the original purchase. And I'm an urban planner by training, and so there's been a lot of shared conversation about what we can do to have really community-minded development as we go along this. And I will turn it over to Laura.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Laura. I am just a community member really that took an interest in this project and got selected for the steering committee. So I'm really excited and proud to be part of this community-led initiative. We've made a ton of progress over the past year, so I'm excited to see this come to fruition. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here, Laura and Stephanie. So we'll go ahead and open it up. I'm happy to kind of direct traffic, and anyone on the steering committee or whoever it may be, feel free to help answer questions if you feel comfortable doing so. So yeah, any questions, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get started. Gary, go for it.
These are, I think, questions. I don't know how they quite fit together, but could you talk to financing the project? Is that complete, or are you looking for participation? And how are you looking at ownership of the facilities? Is it going to be participation from, are you looking for an outside investor to be a part owner? Is Whittier going to be the owner? Are the tenants ultimately going to have the opportunity to own part of their space?
I can take a crack at that answer. So I would say there are a couple of guardrails that we've set out in there, but some of those questions depends on what feels possible to the ultimate partner and respondent. So a Whittier Alliance is interested in maintaining a long-term ownership stake in the building, but that does not need to be 100% ownership stake. So we do not have the capacity to independently finance the entire building. So there will be some equity that needs to be brought in and also some level of debt taken on. The most successful partner probably has some ability to help really bring in some of that financing. And so what we're looking for is someone who has experience closing deals and putting that together. We do have some sense of where additional grant funds could be gone after in terms of pre-development dollars and some other relationships that could provide some equity infusions into the project, but it's not fully financed. And that's partly because the building still needs to be designed. I think a resident ownership structure in terms of a cooperative model could potentially be valuable. A condo model probably can't, with current construction costs, meet the affordability component. It's really expensive right now. But if there is an opportunity for shared ownership we're certainly interested in exploring that. So it was kind of an open-ended answer because we really did try with the RFP to not be so prescriptive that only one thing could be created. And we're looking to hear from you all what really feels like a project that could be successfully financed, knowing that we are not in a position to self-finance the full construction and would need to take on loans to do so. Does that get at what you're asking, Gary?
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, it answers some questions and gives me some opportunities to bring other things to the table for one-on-one meetings.
The other thing I would just want to highlight is on page 12, there are a list of response requirements. And so some details about a conceptual deal structure and proposed sources and uses would be included in responses we want to see from folks.
And again, I want to highlight one thing, which is that none of this is finalized or complete. So this is an opportunity to talk through some potential options that could happen and how Whittier Alliance could, I guess, say to that. And nothing is prescribed, so everything's open. We're just looking to see what's possible with the deal structure, but in some way having Whittier Alliance have some stake in this project and the overall results of this development. And obviously the Whittier Alliance office being there, there'd be some type of deal structure that would allow us to have our office there and then also have a stake in the project of some form. So there's one tenant that is for sure looking at a use in that building. So.
Thanks, George. Other questions?
I can't figure out how to raise my hand, so if it's okay.
Yes, please go for it.
Can you talk a little bit about Whittier's space needs? You know, just from a general, you know, square footage or number of offices, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Bridget, do we have that in the, I think we have a little bit about that in the proposal. Could you share that again, that page?
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk a little bit about sort of like our day-to-day too. So we have a small team. We've got, generally depending on the year and the projects in front of us, we have really anywhere from 3 to 5 folks on our team. So it's small. But what we are interested in terms of, you know, functionality is that really, as Bridget mentioned, we would be interested in utilizing a shared space as far as conference room, restroom. We would love to have one sort of more private prayer room that could be used as prayer room, nursing room, private meeting space, type of a flexible closed door. But otherwise, we really have an open concept office, you could say. We basically have one room in a basement for storage. We do have some event equipment, tents, tables, things like that that we use pretty regularly in the warmer months. So some sort of ability to store that would be necessary. But in terms of square footage, anywhere right around that 1,200 square foot, as I see Bridget has in the proposal up on the screen there, is really kind of what we're thinking at. So, you know, shared amenities, but really nothing overly complicated for us.
One thing I would add on that is the shared amenities could reduce that square footage need. So part of that is for meeting space. And if there were other nonprofits, I know we've talked to some other nonprofits that might have interest in renting space in this building, then potentially a portion of that would actually be that shared amenity space, and the Whittier Alliance standalone offices could be significantly smaller, a few hundred square feet.
Okay.
So for example, there we could have a larger conference room that could house our board or any of our like housing and land use or community engagement meetings and with community members, but then it could be used for another nonprofit that's in the building or another tenant for office use within that building. Kaylee, do you want to speak to how many Whittier Alliance staff members on average we typically have at the office? So how many like desk spaces would be needed for those staff members?
Yep, for sure. So I mentioned we generally have anywhere from usually around 3 to 5 people. So currently looking around this room, we've got 4 desks and 1 sort of larger sort of conference or working table. And so that's roughly what we would need for our own space. As far as those sort of shared community spaces, if there's a flexible event meeting room type of thing that tenants can use, but can also be booked by, the commercial tenants as well, like residential and commercial, that we could host our community meetings in as well. That would be ideal. And we could sort of then involve tenants more actively as well in sort of our day-to-day activities and programming. That would be very cool.
And for sizing for the committees, I think max attendance we would really have is between 20 to 30 residents. And so we're usually aiming at like our spaces being about 30 people, housing at least 30 people for our meetings. Does that sound accurate?
I would say ideally up to 50. So we have a little bit of flexibility if we, had a larger need, but generally we have around 20 or so people in a room.
And that would be just seating kind of like meeting style, not tables like for a community meal or a community activity, just really set up for a meeting.
Yeah, exactly right. And can be flexible, chairs set up, torn down, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be sort of one set type of layout for sure.
Thank you.
You can unshare, Bridget. Thank you so much.
Just out of curiosity, what was this site? Was it something at one point?
It was a funeral home in the 70s and 80s. It has been vacant ever since. A few things have been proposed and nothing has come to fruition, but the zoning changed on it recently. We did have a phase 1 environmental done, so we have a history of the site, and that is something that would be available.
Okay.
Rochelle, did you have a question earlier?
More like a statement, like dead bodies. No, I'm just playing. Halloween is right around the corner. Listen, Jesse asked the right question. Get in there. Like, what was here before? So I just had
that's not what we've led with.
There you go.
I know, right? Everybody jumps off like, I ain't messing with that. So more so, has Whittier thought about the whole overall cost for the project? And with that number being in mind, how much has Whittier came up with so far?
Sorry, go ahead, Bridget.
I should have just let you go. We do have probably more details than a fleshed out budget that could be shared. The short answer is our site acquisition cost about $210,000. And we're looking for that to be an equity contribution in the deal. So again, we're seeking a partner who is able to also contribute to the pre-development and equity costs.
Okay, and has there been any city funding or state funding or county funding contributed to this at all?
So we can't really seek those funding sources until we've got a proposal. And so I would guess with the size of the lot and the fact that we would like to develop it fairly densely, this is probably a $10 to $15 million construction budget altogether. There are funding sources that could be available towards some of those, and we know of them, but we aren't in a position to apply for them until we have a partner and a plan. So
that sounds good.
I don't know if that answers the question, but that's where we are there.
Thanks, you guys.
And Maggie?
Yeah, I was just curious, is there a certain affordability level you're hoping to see in the housing element, either rental or ownership?
Nope, this is intentionally left broad. So the I think the description that's actually in the document is just below market rate. Is kind of what we're looking at. Again, I think that there's a lot of ways to potentially do that. That doesn't necessarily have to be 100% of the units either. But some units available at below market rate is what we're requesting to see in proposals.
This is a neighborhood where average incomes are below average incomes in the metro, and we would not feel good about putting an entirely luxury development on the site. However, there are maybe better mechanisms for some sort of fully affordable. So we're open. We're open, like Bridget said.
The
Gary.
neighborhood. Oh, sorry.
Go for it, Gary.
Yeah, what level of net zero are you aspiring to? And then I can't remember if I read in this that do you want parking, or are you looking to eliminate parking altogether?
So per Minneapolis zoning currently on the site and the future 2040 plan, that site does not require any parking, and there is an issue currently with entry into the site, as there's three adjacent properties and there's no alley on the property. So the current curb cut is there's no current curb cut. The curb cut would have to be added on Nicollet Ave for any trash or recycling or any deliveries, but there could be a unique way of working out a deal with the north property owner that could allow us an entry from their parking lot for any of the deliveries or anything that could happen on site. But we're not really looking at creating parking, but if there is a solution of some underground parking that could occur, that would be nice to look at. But I don't think surface parking was in the works as we were looking at the property due to the size of the property and due to the fact that the 2040 plan doesn't require any parking on this, since it's right in front of a bus stop on a major thoroughfare in the city. And I don't remember what the other part of the question was. I know the
I was wondering what level of net zero you want to achieve.
So with net zero, we're looking at sustainability is the number one result we got from community feedback about what they want to see in this development. And so it's really open up to the proposals and how unique they want to be. There's no prescribed going to full net zero on the site. It would be really cool to see a net zero building on Nicollet Ave if there is a way of adding solar panels, water retention and whatnot. So I think it's opened up to the proposals and how unique you all want to be, and we're really open to anything that comes out from the proposal. So there's no prescribed net zero level that we want to get to or any prescribed sustainability standards that we want to reach. Did I miss anything, team?
It's sort of like with affordability, right? The more sustainable the building is, the more attractive and competitive a proposal is, but it is that intersection between something that is more deeply affordable, more sustainable, but also like realistic, right? We do understand that it's complicated. It's a complicated site. It's a small site. Not everything can be done on any one project. And so is this credible and still achieving some of those goals around community benefits, affordability, and sustainability?
Yeah, it's all a system. So if we want to make it more affordable, we're going to have to spend less somewhere else. So we understand that, and we understand what we have to give and take. And so it's really, the solution is going to be very creative, and being able to weigh everything, I think is going to be really unique for each proposal, and understand where our priorities are. But as you've seen, like the feedback was to create a more sustainable building versus other items that we had put in that survey. So does that clarify the answer there, Gary?
Yes.
Thank you.
David, go for it.
I have a question. Can you hear me okay? I have a question. If there's like a similar building, either in the neighborhood or in the city, that would be kind of similar in what you envision this to be, is there a precedent that you've looked at, or something that say, boy, that seems like that could really fit?
My favorite precedent is in Portland, and I will send you a link.
Was it that same one you shared with the steering committee, Bridget? Yes.
What is it?
She'll
It's
send a link.
Jolene's Second Cousin by Guerrilla Development. I can put it in the chat.
So this is one of the first of its kind here in Minneapolis. So there's precedents maybe in other states, and so I don't think we really have one in mind in Minneapolis unless somebody could think of one. I think it's just open to interpretation, but there is precedents from Seattle that Bridget will send in the chat here that is a community-led development that kind of achieves some of the goals we're trying to do. That answer the question, David? A little bit.
We can also,
thanks for sharing.
We had some more precedent conversations earlier, and that might be something where we can send some more examples out in the Q&A. So that might be a question where we get back to you with a few more things.
I have a similar question, not so much on the physical form as a precedent, but there's quite a bit of emphasis on community engagement. You have a similar kind of project that has done a successful community engagement that, aspects of which that you'd like or have seen it be effective or that seem to resonate well for this neighborhood?
Yeah, so I would say the Whittier Alliance in general has spent the last several years really refining our community engagement process for real estate developers who are engaging with the neighborhood and not necessarily in partnership in other avenues. So that's kind of a starting point. And I think what we really want to hear from folks is what opportunities you see to leverage the neighborhood organization and the skill sets that we bring to the table. So we're not necessarily asking the development partner to be an expert in this area, but really asking how you're going to be willing to work with us and the organization as experts in that. Did you have anything else to add, Kaylee?
I would just say, there's been a lot of really expanded community engagement that's happened in the partnership of PPL and Cultural Wellness Center on the 3030 Nicollet project. If anyone's familiar with that, it was the former Wells Fargo branch, still will have a branch in there, but it's going to be family-sized affordable housing, and they've built in a condoized, essentially commercial element for 5 new BIPOC-owned local businesses to take some commercial space in that project. But there's been really an extended process, and I don't think that, that it's not by any means the same scale of building or project, but I think that they've really tried to bring the community along in the process and sort of build up that capacity for folks to understand sort of the impact of the built environment, especially for a project of that scale, for that to have on the community. And so, I think there's elements of that we can learn from and really kind of adapt for our project and for this part of the neighborhood for a little bit further north.
And then I think lastly, just noting that a significant amount of community engagement has already been accomplished for the site. So that's hopefully of value as you're considering your proposals. There's, the RFP is a result of community engagement, and there's also, more detailed breakdowns of survey responses included in the document. And I think an important piece to consider is how the community will continue to be informed about the process and the results of this, building off of the work that's already been done.
Bessie.
Just kind of a follow-up on the community engagement. I mean, what are you primarily hearing about housing needs or interests in that community engagement? What type of housing? I know you named some different possibilities. I assume that's kind of what you heard, or what did you hear in the engagement?
I think that I'll start. Bridget, please feel free to jump in. I saw you were about to start.
No, you're good. Yeah, go.
I will just say that, you know, I don't think that we've asked the question of that level of specificity quite yet. I think that we are really trying to narrow in the full, very broad spectrum of all of the different types of things we could prioritize at a higher level. And I think, you know, we weren't terribly surprised to see residential affordability, you know, as a concept to be of importance and on people's minds. You know, something that we hear a lot is that there isn't enough, you know, family-sized affordable housing. I do know that there are a lot of projects primarily on the Lake Street corridor that are in process right now that are working to fill that need, and on a quite larger scale than this site is able to accommodate. And so we recognize that that might not be a very specific need that this project can meet, you know, just the way that it might pencil out. And so I think what we're broadly thinking about is what are some other gaps, or what are some other potential types of housing that our neighborhood doesn't have as an option right now, or maybe has very few examples of, that, you know, maybe this site could test, or, you know, kind of prove as a small scale model of something that someone else could sort of take and run with elsewhere in the city, or on larger sites, or future opportunities in the neighborhood. Bridget, do you have something else you want to add, or anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to say affordability is really something, a theme that always rises to the top in conversations about housing. There's a ton of NOAA housing in the neighborhood, and so I think generally people expect to see apartments available at that price range, whether or not they're new construction. And also there's a lot of energy around like anti-displacement advocacy, and really making sure that Whittier can remain affordable for families that are already here, people that are already here, and folks who want to be here. I think that was it. I think that was all I wanted to add. Oh, I do remember the other thing I wanted to add. We've also had a history as an organization of supporting multiple projects in the neighborhood with on-site services for deeply affordable populations too. So I wouldn't say that's out of the realm of possibilities. Obviously, folks that are, you know, familiar with developing those projects understand that the relationships to communities are complex, but again, we've seen support from neighbors in those types of projects as well.
One idea that came up, and this isn't like an overwhelming community feedback, but just to broaden the ideas, are also housing for seniors in the community. That is something that there isn't a lot of right now. We do have a strong, there are lots of different types of supportive housing. That doesn't mean we can't use more, but a lot of that does exist. There really isn't a lot for seniors, which is a smaller unit size that might be more workable on the site than family size units, or something that was even more of an SRO type model. So those are just ideas that have come up. One of the things, and I know you've heard this as a theme from all of us, but the goal here was to explore what was possible. And we understood that if we came out and said, we want you to build exactly this building and price it at exactly these rent levels, that no one would ever respond and seek to be a partner with that in there. So we do understand that there are, that we're testing the bounds of what can be done. And we're looking for someone to help us be creative and push that, but still actually do a deal that can result in a building on the site that can be used. So we don't want to pile too many hopes onto it.
Other questions? Well, we do have, we're hoping to, continue taking questions until the 30th, I believe was our published deadline. And so if no one has any other questions today, or if you're kind of thinking on this and going through stuff with colleagues or partners and things come up, please do feel free to send those over to us and we'll work to get those answered. And we will include all of the questions that were asked here today and any new ones that come in and those answers, as well as some links of some examples of other projects or precedents. As Stephanie mentioned, we'll include those on our project webpage, and we'll send those out to everyone that was here, as well as, publishing on the project webpage. If you have not put your email in the chat and want to receive that information, please do that, and we'll be sure to get it out to you. And I can hang out for a few more minutes as well until 3. If anybody has other questions that come up, happy to answer those in this time. Otherwise, we really appreciate everyone for taking the time to come. And we look forward to working with all of you, some of you, as we move forward. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah.
Stephanie,
I just want to add one thing, which is the goal is to find a partner in this, in that it is not a closed sort of walled off RFP process. So if you are trying to understand, like, how much money do I need to put into developing this concept for this RFP? Like, talk to us, because we'd like to remove some of those barriers and make this something where we can really design it together. So there are requirements and goals in that. They are written to allow things that are a little more conceptual and not sort of fully designed. But just ask if you have a question along the way of, like, do you really need this? This is going to take this work. Or is this proposal even something that, like, I should continue to develop? So don't feel like you can't reach out even after that period ends. We'll do our best to make sure communication is transparent so that no one is cut off from any lines of communication, but it's not a code of silence. So just wanted to make sure you guys knew that.
Thanks, Stephanie. And a reminder, we are doing a site tour tomorrow for anyone who wants to come check out the site in person. Again, just drop in. So between 4 and 5:30, if you want to come by 2116 Nicollet Avenue, a few of us will be there and happy to kind of walk around and kind of explain a little bit about the block. Hope to see you there. Thank you again for your time and your interest.
Is the site fenced off or anything? So if we have people who can't attend the walk through tomorrow, is the site largely accessible?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, there is a fence along the, so as I think Bridget mentioned, or maybe George, there is 3 buildings on the sides of it, but the east facing side, which is on Nicollet Avenue, there is a fence and a gate, but the gate is not locked. So you're certainly welcome to kind of come through. If tomorrow doesn't work for you, definitely go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Great.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone. Good
Yeah,
rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.